Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. One of the difficulties of podcasting is the audio. It's all audio. And so people are really aware of quality. There's actually this company, it's called Zencastr. And I actually do use Zencastr if I'm recording with, let's see, what have I done? I've done Bali, I've done India, I've done South Africa, I've done, of course, the US, UK. So it works. That's the great thing about Zencastr. You could get video as well in HD, no less. The link's in the description. Make it happen. Use the promo code ZEN, Z-E-N if you're Canadian, or Z-E-N if you're American. Do that, and you'll get 30% off. You get 30% off the first 3 months. Use it. Do it. Start your own podcast. I'm sure that if you start a podcast, I will listen to it, and I would not be surprised if it was better than shooting it raw. So check it out, Zencastr. There's this thing called VinoVest, and people are beginning to talk about it. It's on TechCrunch, Forbes, and what is it? It's basically people who invest in fine wine and make money off that. Fine wine is essentially, it's the best kept secret, right? Because wine doesn't really change in value all that much. It actually gains in value. So you actually get ownership of world-class wines, and it's attractive, and it's a really strong investment that wealthy people know all about this stuff. I mean, you get 500% returns. It's nuts. So VinoVest, links in the description as always. Check them out. Use Shooting It Raw as your promotional code. And if you do that, you'll get 2 months of no fees. So check out the website. You can see how it works and why wine is actually an amazing investment. And yeah, so check it out. You might just make a huge ton of cash. Ryan here, and this is Shooting It Raw. Thanks for joining. This week, I am going to reissue episode 34. And so Andrea Richey is here based in Hong Kong, and she's talking about Hong Kong Shark Foundation. And it might feel like that's super far away, but believe it or not, we all share the same biosphere, right? We all share the same planet. We're all affected. Even if you're in landlocked Australia, or landlocked North America, or landlocked Europe, wherever, your health, your well-being, the air you breathe, all this stuff is deeply and intimately connected with the health of the ocean. So join me and Andrea while we have this really amazing conversation, and hopefully you'll learn something. And thanks a lot for supporting Shooting It Raw. I'll catch you later.
Photography, to me, I guess, is best explained in the old adage, a picture says 1,000 words. It's very emotive. It can really drive home, very powerful emotions. It can send messages that are very powerful. And especially at the Shark Foundation, from beautiful sharks in the ocean to all the way to the final, unfortunate product of something like shark fin.
Andrea Richey, we are now sitting in the offices here in Hong Kong. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. We know each other already, haven't seen each other for years, and I'm really delighted by how you're spending your time. I love it. Okay, so let's just dive into the photographs, and then we'll hear the whole story. We'll talk about whatever you want.
Great.
Can I have a glass of water?
Yes, you may.
Great. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so the first picture, let me just describe it, because just to give people an audio anchor. Okay, so it's a picture of a shop in Hong Kong. It's very it's one of those shops of dried seafood. This is like a nice looking shop. It's not grungy or dingy, very bright. There are a lot of people around you. The light is all artificial light. There doesn't seem to be natural light spilling in from the street. So I don't know if this is a street shop, but you can see the dried scallops. You can see what I know to be large shark fin and small shark fin, and a huge amount of shark fin, of dried shark fin. So what is this photograph? Why start with this one to open the conversation?
Great question. Thanks, Ran. First, let me say thank you very much for having me. Very excited to always have the opportunity to get our message out. And of course, our message is to help raise awareness about shark conservation. So in regards to this photo, this is in fact a regular shop on the street.
Oh, it is on the street.
Yeah. This is in Saigon.
Okay.
In between Saigon and Shangwan and Central, you'll probably find, I would venture to guess, maybe 1,000 dried seafood shops selling all kinds of dry seafood. This shop, this particular picture shows myself taking one of my famous tours, where I take kids on field trips or reporters or anybody who wants to go. I put together groups every few weeks, maybe once a month, and most of the people actually are locals.
Okay.
I'd say 75-25, and 25% are probably people who live here or have lived here a long time. One of the most common comments I get is, I used to live here for years and I never paid attention and noticed all these dead shark fins right here that I walked by in these shops.
Yeah, that area is called ground zero of the shark trade.
I call it the dried shark fin market.
Okay, sure.
But you have to understand, every little community in Hong Kong, no matter where you go, whether it's Sha Tin or Ma San or Sai Kung, every area that has a little marketplace, like a wet market or whatever, will also have lots of dried seafood shops around it. So
for sure.
This just happens to be, as you said, ground zero.
Is this particular shop, what is their relationship to you? Because when I went around, they were quite abrasive to me. So when you go around and what's their reaction?
So when I go around, and depending on, of course, who my group is, I'll usually speak to the group in English or Mandarin, because I speak Mandarin.
Oh, okay.
Not so good at Cantonese. And so I'll usually be speaking to them in English and Mandarin, or I'll explain to them what's going on. And if the shopkeepers are kind of looking at us funny, I'll just start talking to the shopkeeper in Mandarin.
Oh, okay.
And I'll explain that, this is a group of interested people. These are students and they want to learn about Chinese culture.
Oh, okay.
And one of the most important things in Chinese culture, especially if you're getting married, are the big four, which is balsam cheeto, abalone, sea cucumber or sea slug, because it's really an animal, shark fin, and fish maw or fish bladder. So balsam cheeto in Cantonese. With these four things, people say you have a lucky marriage. They're the most expensive items that you can get, or some of the most. So it also gives you face when you have, say, a wedding or an annual dinner or a family gathering. They're pretty much they're very nice to me. They smile. They want to share. The only time is sometimes if they're taking photos, people in the shop might say, no. But we're standing on the street, which is a public area, so they don't really have any way. And they know that.
Okay. Well, this brings up a really good point. So we met in 2003, 2004 in different capacity. But how long have you been in Hong Kong?
I've been in Hong Kong 30 years.
30? Mm-hmm. Respect, man. 30 years. Wow, respect.
Before that, I lived in China, and before that, I lived in Taiwan.
Right. Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why I have Mandarin. So, so my Cantonese is not so good.
Sure.
So, these vendors all can speak Mandarin.
Sure.
Right? Because they're buying and selling with China. And we believe that 50% of the global shark fin trade is passing through Hong Kong. Does it remain? How much of that remains and how much of it goes to China, Singapore, Vietnam, etc.? It's very hard to know the exact data on that.
Okay, just so that I don't sound as much of an imbecile, because the data, the information that I know is, at this point, I stopped really being hands-on in 2016. So how much have things changed since 2016 and now? So back then, just to remind you as an anchor, I think Bloom Foundation had just not just, but it completed their sort of wide survey of the population in terms of what the attitude was in the population as far as consuming and stuff like that. And so there was a downtrend that they were talking about in terms of local consumption. And I don't know if that was just a kind of, it just fell for a little bit and then it just came back, or if that trend is held.
That is incredibly difficult to measure.
Uh-huh.
As you probably well know, surveys can be manipulated for an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And many times we do a survey and, we don't look at the education or the demographics or the age or et cetera. But we found, and I think the survey you're talking about is one that was done by Hong Kong University. And they found there was a downturn in consumption.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you really look at the questions, if I went back and looked at the questions, they asked questions like, would you eat shark fin soup? And people said no. But then they followed on, but if it's put in front of you at a wedding, would you eat it? And they said yes. So you have to look at how you manipulate the data.
Sure.
And we call that passive consumption, where someone says, oh, I wouldn't buy it or I wouldn't eat it. But then when they go to an auntie's 88th birthday or a wedding, they will eat it. So, and they won't make any comment about it, which is why we try to educate people to be shark ambassadors, to explain why at their wedding they're not having it, to leave table tents that say this wedding had no shark fin soup because blah, blah, blah. So we have to be careful of data. Basically, it's hard to quantify. And when you can't measure it, you can't manage it very well. But the most difficult part about being an activist charity versus a scientific based like Bloom or WWF or Greenpeace, right? The problem with this is we don't have much data because we don't have our own marine biologists to create loads of data like the books and, lots of reports coming out, which gives NGOs credibility. And we are more grassroots, like Wild Aid, Sea Shepherd, and us. We are all of the same different kind of activism, where we're actually at the grassroots changing cognitive behavior, changing hearts and minds, instead of just saying again, oh, it's academic when you say the reef sharks are dying. Right. We know that, right? Or the numbers are down. Yes, we know that. We need to do action. It's like constantly saying climate change is a problem, but not doing anything about it. We feel that we really need another report about how the sharks are diminishing. But what I can tell you is we used to use the number 73 million. Then we kind of inched up to the number of 100 million sharks killed every year. And then last year in 2019, I was with Diego Cardonoza, who's a very famous marine biologist from Colombia, who's in Rob Stewart's Shark Water, who is doing some data research with Bloom and us right now that Hong Kong Shark Foundation is in fact funding. He told me, Andrea, your number, 100 million killed every year, that's not right. And I thought, oh, darn. But you know what? He told me it's more like 270 million.
Wow.
And the reason for that, and I don't have anything besides a scientist,
just like
Diego's, caliber and the data he's collected. He tells me that before the 80s, people cut shark fins off and threw them in the water. And we said, shark finning is cruel and unsustainable. You chuck the shark back in the water and they suffocate and sink to the bottom, right? But he said now they've become very resourceful. You now eat shark, not just for the fin, which is basically what we eat in Hong Kong, right? Because fishermen all over the world, whether it's Yemen or Spain or Costa Rica, Uruguay, or wherever they are, they know fins come to Asia because they get the biggest
the price.
Correct. But little do people know that in fact the shark is being saved and not being thrown overboard. And that shark, maybe as a result of bycatch from long lining and gill netting, right? But mostly from overfishing, those whole bodies are now being cut up for steaks.
Right.
Italy, number 2 in the world for consumption. And because they use the skin. Master tanners in Italy, right?
Okay.
And number 3, they use the shark liver oil, which we call squalene, for makeup, women's lipstick, women's moisturizers, because you see, sharks don't have bladders. what they have are very fatty livers.
Right.
And so the oil in the liver, much like whale oil in the turn of the century, which was used for kerosene lamps, now people are coveting the whale liver so they can turn it into supplements.
The shark liver, yeah.
Correct. So they can turn it into squalene, etc.
Yeah.
So no longer is the shark just used for shark fin.
Sure.
That's just all we really eat in Hong Kong.
Right.
And squalene supplements. That's very popular here.
I hear you 100%, loud and clear. Let's move on to the next photo. Now, this photograph is very powerful. It's photographed by our good friend Alex Hofford, an amazing conservationist, amazing person, such a good human being, really dedicated, incredible photojournalist, really. And so the photograph here, okay, so at the top of the image, you've got just this hints of little islands. It's in Hong Kong. The bottom 3/4 is rooftops in Hong Kong, probably in
Kennedy Town.
Kennedy Town, there we go. And across these rooftops are just shark fins drying. And there are probably several hundred of various sizes, or maybe they're all uniformly sized, several hundred drying in the sun. Yeah, it's a powerful image. Beyond hitting you over the head with the sheer... I mean, here, if you just look at it in terms of the value, like one shark fin is worth how much money?
So one shark fin, you can't determine how much it is unless you weigh it.
Right.
Because shark fin is sold by kilos.
Sure.
Or caddy in Hong Kong.
Right.
But basically it works out, it can average anywhere from $20, right? Maybe 20 US, right? 150 Hong Kong. The most expensive per kilo I have found is 2,000 US. I had a field trip I did with some students one time, and I said, okay, find the most expensive. And I couldn't believe it because I hadn't even seen that expensive before.
Sure. So on that roof, though, we're looking at several $1,000s of
hundreds of thousands, I would say.
Of stock.
US.
So, and that's the driver. Right, the driver is sheer greed. Is sheer,
absolutely.
Yeah. So what would you like to add about this very powerful image?
I particularly like this photo because it really sums up how the business it booms in Hong Kong and how people don't realize it because it's above their head, literally. And what we're trying to do at the Shark Foundation is education, right? We're trying to educate people. I'm a farmer.
Okay.
I plant seeds every day. So right now, your listeners who would be interested in trying to understand better the problem, right? Taking a critical analysis standpoint, what is the problem and how are we contributing to that and how can we change? What's the solution? This picture to me, when I show this to every one of my students, we have an education program called the Shark Ambassadors. And that Shark Ambassador program, we reached out to 10,800 kids in 2019.
Oh, great.
So, which was a 350% increase from 2016 when I started this. And so every time I show this to them, and I said, look at this picture. This picture is in Hong Kong. This is on the rooftops. So when you're walking around, and you're a bit oblivious to the wildlife crime that's going on right literally above your head, you may see it dried. Because this picture actually shows you the shark fins with the skin still on. Exactly. That's why they're gray.
Right.
And that's why when they get to now here, that means people will skin them and then bleach them a bit and then dry them. And so what you see in the market at ground zero is the finished product.
Right.
So these fins come to Hong Kong usually in a refrigerated container. Or if they're dried enough, they'll put them into a container and bring them. And we did have a huge shipment seizure, which is just the tip of the iceberg, really.
It's just what they caught.
Correct. So literally, if you think of an iceberg and what's at the top, they caught it. And this was back in 2019. In this year of 2020. And in that shipment was 2 containers from Ecuador. And, I don't know for a fact. I have a guess on why they got caught. But that would have been typical of the container ship that came. Not finished product, brought here, dried right here in Kennedy Town. Yeah. So students really, and people can really resonate with this because this is literally in their backyard. They can relate to it. What? Yeah. In my backyard? Right. And I think that really helps because out of sight, out of mind is too easy.
Absolutely. And it's really great that one of the people who, so I've known Alex since the first day that I launched Shark Rescue, which was in August of 2009. From the time that I've known him, he has been an incredible champion. And how do you feel about, okay, you have these incredibly powerful images, but how do you feel in terms of the frustration, in terms of your energy when you're doing education and shouldn't the information be enough to create a change in behavior? So how do you deal with that frustration as an activist?
Well, that's another great question, because what you're talking about is, you're looking for a catalyst that you can help people make a cause and effect connection so that they'll stop. That's a cognitive behavior change, right? Right. So that people will stop doing something. And one of the ways is through a picture. And that picture, Alex had a great opportunity. He really did a wonderful job. But you definitely get compassion fatigue as you get compassion burnout. As an animal rights activist, as an activist, and Hong Kong has been through a heavy year of activism.
Sure.
And unfortunately, one of the things I learned from Alex is, images are just one thing. It's about, you plant those images, but you've got to educate people how to take action. Mm-hmm. How can an 8-year-old help? And so what I try to do is teach them that everybody can be part of the change. Mm-hmm. We're all agents of change. Even young people like Greta Thunberg, right? Yeah. She's a powerhouse of change. And she demonstrates how even young people can do one little thing and it makes a difference. I try to plant that same message. And how people can make change is simply say no to shark fin soup. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. Mm-hmm. Then take that message to your family, to your classmates, to your church, to your community. And the next level is, sign a petition. Get a petition going mm-hmm. to get other people of like-minded ilk to stop eating shark fin. And
let's expand that message a little bit for people not in Hong Kong, in that if you're North America and you're in Australia or whatever, in the UK, the fish in fish and chips is very often shark meat. Absolutely. So, it's always easy to be, not easy, but it's always, that problem is over there. Yeah. But, I was in Montreal in 2016 and I was going to the grocery and they had sharks, like baby sharks all over, and, because they're selling it for shark meat. And interestingly enough, those sharks, they were finned. They send the fins to Asia, but the sharks there are, so it's not a problem over there. No matter where you are in the world, sharks are everywhere. So the problem is where you are.
And in fact, the United States is like one of the major contributors of shark fins in the world, because they transit through the U.S. or they're caught off U.S. waters, like Florida, California, Mexico, right? They're caught off in the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, and then they're just put in containers, the fins, and brought over here. So there was
they're part of the supply chain.
Yeah, exactly. There was a huge shipment seized in Florida just this year also. Or late 2019. And it's there. But, people don't realize it. Again, they don't realize that they're part of the problem. So that's why we educate on, all right, take a pledge. Say no to shark fin soup, right? Number 2, sign a petition. Start a petition in your schools, particularly good for kids, et cetera, right? Circulate that around, see what you do with that. And thirdly, let's target companies that are directly and indirectly contributing to the extinction of the species. Case in point, Maxims. We started at Alex Hofford's direction back in 2018, 17. We started to target Maxims. Maxims Group has 55 Chinese seafood restaurants. And we asked them politely in a letter, stop selling shark fin soup. No. We had a meeting with them. They basically said, to sum it up and paraphrase the meeting, that's okay, we're not going to stop. We make too much money from shark fins, right? It's too much part of our tradition here. And so we went to the next level. We started to do petitions. We got kids involved. Then we went to the next level, which was to protest. We had several protests at their restaurants. And then the last petition was focused on one of their franchises, which is Starbucks. And 10 days before the protest, we're not sure exactly what was the catalyst. They decided to stop selling all shark fin products in all 55 of their seafood restaurants.
Oh, great.
Yeah. As of Jan 1, 2020. Now, that was in September 22nd, 2018. But the reasoning was they had a lot of stock. But I think they had stock, but they also had a lot of existing contracts, probably with wholesalers. And they had to run those out, or they were probably looking at some legal action.
So to go back to your photo, which is essentially a screenshot of these two older gentlemen in their 50s and up, in front of a white kind of glass countertop. On it are very large, those are large fins, because if you imagine the size of a shark to have fins that large, so there's 7 fins of more or less decreasing size. These are probably sharks of at least, 400 kilos or whatever to a ton. They're massive sharks, and they're in a very kind of studio set of a kitchen with some nice countertops. There's the sort of the elegant tap behind. The lighting's very nice. It's obviously a studio for German pool. Let's sort of shame them a little bit. And it's like a product advertisement on a website. What is this?
So this is a great picture. I think this kind of also sums up a lot of the culture and the sort of ostrich head in the sand, or the ostrich phenomenon, as I like to call it. Just burying your head in the sand and ignoring what the problem really is. This is a campaign by a local company called German Pool. Has nothing to do with being German. They're local? Yes, that's the founder right there.
Oh, I always thought German Pool was German.
Nothing to do with Germany.
Those bastards.
No, they make ovens and humidifiers and
water heaters. Yeah, for sure, yeah.
And they're very good at what they do. They've been around a long time. I think they have a very credible product. And they created a social media platform called Happy Kitchen.
Okay.
Happy Kitchen is where they have cooks come on and use their German Pool products to cook recipes.
Sure.
So the founder here is meeting with this gentleman who actually used to be the chairman of the MTR.
Oh.
And now he is a professor at Hong Kong U because he's retired. He's no longer the chairman as of 2019.
Right.
So these two gentlemen, he's called in his best mate, and they're going to do, which is very typical, what families, older generation, men and women in their 70s and 80s like to do, which is yamcha, to go out, eat yamcha, or have family gathering. Family is very important in our culture. So he's teaching this gentleman his best shark fin soup recipe. Yeah. So when I saw this, I was pretty shocked because at the bottom it says something to the effect of, this is how disingenuous it is, right? Don't eat shark fin soup, but it's okay to use up the stock you have first. If you have stock of shark fin soup, you can make this recipe, but don't go out and buy more of it.
Right.
Kind of thing. It was like almost a throwaway kind of like plea to, okay, we're sustainable. But I think the message is from a corporate social responsibility, or the message should be from a CSR, a corporate social responsibility standpoint. The message really should be absolutely, this is what you don't want to do.
Exactly.
Right? You are contributing to the unsustainable and the overfishing of the oceans, which has a direct impact, we know, on climate change.
And you're promoting it.
Correct. So it's great that you asked me, that we've talked about this photo today, because in fact today we are launching a petition on Support Hong Kong, supporthk.org, which is a charity right here in this office in Hong Kong, and we are launching a petition asking German Pool to remove this video. And so, watch this space.
Yeah. Okay, so around our podcast, I'm going to link to Hong Kong Shark Foundation's website. I'll put other links as well, as far as whatever you feel is useful. Okay, so let's go back to part of what's interwoven in Shooting It Raw is this idea that how can we inspire people to kind of step back from everyday life and push things forward a little bit, either for the greater good, issues that are bigger than yourself, however it is. So very inspirational. Okay, so listening to your language, I had mentioned this earlier, listening to your language, you have very clear professional services type language in the sense that I know that you worked in a law firm. Somebody listening to you who has a different mindset, first of all, doesn't have the experience that you have or the training, how did you go from there to here? Is it a big jump, or was it actually just a natural progression?
In 2019, I was privileged to be asked to do a TED Talk at Chinese University, a TEDx talk. And that really helped me to fine-tune my message. And I had to really think about, how did I get in this, right? Mm-hmm. What would be interesting to people? And my message, as I explained in that TEDx talk, right, is in 2015, I had been working as a legal recruiter. I had worked for a Wall Street firm that, I know, that's how I know you. Mm-hmm. I was an ex-lawyer in corporate communications, and I sort of had an epiphany. My father had died. My mother had a heart attack. And I sort of reached that age that women get to when they start questioning what's the reason for life. And I sort of, what's my existence? Have I done enough? What's the legacy we're leaving? And it just sort of came on. I was working with a lot of very rich clients who were making a lot of money, and they were not happy, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. There has to be more to it than that. Mm-hmm. And so I just decided to start volunteering. So in 2015, I started volunteering for different charities in town, Christian Zoo and the Ark on Lantau. And Jenny does an amazing job out there. And then I knew Jerry McLean, and Jerry was one of the founders, right? And I had seen his talk at the Royal Hong Kong Yacht Club. And there I was sitting, and I thought, well, I'm a fairly educated person, right? I've worked in an educated population, and then I get there and I see this, presentation with photos like I've showed you today, and I thought, wow, how did I not make that connection between the two? How is it I was, eating shark fin soup at weddings and not pushing back and saying, everybody, we have to stop this, right? And I didn't realize the actual decimation of that overfishing was doing to the shark population. Sure. And how 1/3 of the species is near extinction. Mm-hmm. How, as David Attenborough says in One Planet, his show, he says 90%, we have lost 90% of the shark population in 30 years. Right. And that's what Rob Stewart was trying to do in his shark water extinction movies, until we lost him, unfortunately, in January 2017. Mm-hmm. And so I had this sort of epiphany, and I quit my job. And I volunteered different jobs off and on for 3 years without pay. And then, in charities, because we don't have big institutions, or we receive zero government funding and very little, if nothing, over the years from other foundations, we're all dependent on people like you and your listeners for keeping us alive. And we literally run on a volunteer air. Volunteers are the lifeblood. I'm the only employee right now for the Shark Foundation. Yeah. And, I 2 years ago, I became the executive director. And my mission is really now to educate not just students, but to start campaigns like our Shark Free Company campaign, which is a corporate social responsibility campaign, where we just signed up another company yesterday called Legal Beagle, which is a CPD company, where we're trying to get more corporate people into the green mind that they can make a difference. You don't have to quit your job like I did and really jump in, but people can be passionate in different ways. They can sign petitions, they can take pledges within themselves, but they can spread the pledge around. They could have a company, they could have birthday parties and donate money.
Sure.
They could have corporate company parties, annual dinners. They could choose a charity. I can come and be a speaker. So if they want to give back and save sharks, they not only can be a part of the actual activism of voicing and not eating it, right? But they can also be a part by donating to ensure that we continue.
The fuel, yeah.
Yeah, the absolutely great word. That those donations are the fuel to keep us going.
Right.
And this year, I have to say, 2019 and 2020 have been incredibly difficult for charities, especially in Hong Kong, because we started in June of 2019 with the protests, and then we started with December and January of 2020. We started with the COVID-19, and people are concerned about their jobs and their health and their families. So donating to sort of a very, what some might see as an obscure charity, because they don't see the cause and effect between they don't think sharks are important. But what they don't realize is that they are the cleaners and sort of the keepers of the ocean. And without those apex predators, we will have shark populations that are disappearing, but they also maintain a healthy marine ecosystem.
Yeah.
And we get 50% of our water and 50% of our air from the ocean. And they keep those oceans clean. Without sharks, we will have catastrophic effects. We need to take action now.
What is a really bad day for you in terms of, as an activist, when you come in and you're just like, oh man, are you kidding me?
Well, I think as an activist, a really bad day is when I see people not cooperating together to save sharks and save the planet.
Right. Okay. I hear you. So what day, if you're to look back in the past, say, 4 years, is the flagpole that goes so high in terms of what an achievement, your heart's bursting your chest?
When I go to a school, right, and I plant that seed and that message, and then I see young people like having birthday parties through organizations like Two Presents. I don't know if you know that. Right. It's called Two Presents, and they're an invitation platform. They're really in the schools. When kids decide for their birthday, they want to give some of their birthday money to a charity.
Sweet. Nice.
And in fact, today, after when we finish, there's a child coming in here who did exactly that. And then she will come in and we'll talk about the presentation that she saw I give at her school, and we'll thank her. We'll take a little photo.
Nice. And
with her parents' permission, we'll put that on social media, and we'll call her our shark hero.
Nice.
And we give her a little certificate. And she's a shark hero. A great day, and what keeps me going is when I see, kids like that, because they get it, they understand it, and they go a little bit further. They want to even give their money, because the reality is we're a business, and we still have to revenue generate somehow.
Sure.
We don't have much to sell except for education, right, and changing habits, and so that is a bad day too.
Yeah.
When because we go through ups and downs in a charity, and that's why we constantly have leadership succession problems. Because when a leader leaves a small charity like ours, they leave with everything.
Exactly.
And everybody starts from zero
Exactly.
again. And not many people want to do that. We just got we just got involved in an organization called Benevity. Benevity is like a vetting company for charities, for corporates.
Okay.
And Moody's, one of Moody's employees in Hong Kong, was kind enough to give us a donation. And then Moody's matched it. But we weren't on their list of corporate approved charities.
Right.
So we went through months and months of getting approved. It's an organization out of the US called Benevity.
Okay.
And we became approved. We're probably the smallest charity on there with some of the biggest impact, right, of what we do. And so that just got confirmed today.
Wow.
And I'm really excited. It wasn't, a huge amount of money, right?
Little wins. Wins.
But over 1,000 Hong Kong dollars, you can get a tax deductible receipt. That's not so big for people in Hong Kong. For people like in the U.S. who pay a lot of taxes, right, or Australia, or Canada, in the U.K., tax deductible receipts are helpful. So that's really, that helps a lot. And we just got a donation from the Royal Hong Kong Yacht Club. And these are not huge donations, but I have to say the Royal Hong Kong Yacht Club is probably one of our best supporters for the last 2 years. And they give us a donation every year, and they're not a huge fundraiser, but it's just that kindness that will keep us going for another month kind of thing.
So one thing that I realized was that if you can make a difference here, it'll have, because of the its importance in the supply chain, in terms of consumption, in terms of all that stuff, make a difference here, it'll have an impact.
Absolutely. May I give you an example of that
impact? Yeah.
So there's a 16-year-old girl who goes to private boarding school in New York City. Mm-hmm. She happened to see our Instagram account because we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Weibo, right? Mm-hmm. She saw our Instagram account and she went, wow, I want to help those guys. And she reached out to me and she said, hey, I want to help you. I'm a 16-year-old girl. I'm good at social media. What can I do? And we've been working now. Her name's Catherine. She's unbelievable. And you know what? She started something called redbubble.com is an organization in the US where you can take your brand and put it on any product, right? Mm-hmm. A mug, an apron, a hat, a mask. And she put it on 15, 16 products. And she's been selling our brand in the US. Wow. No one in the Hong Kong. They're all in the US. I think it's because the shipping is kind of prohibitive, right? So I've got all these fans now buying Hong Kong Shark Foundation products in the US. So that is an example of the global impact that small things can be done.
That brings up something really interesting, that sometimes it feels like you're pushing a rock up a hill and it's super heavy and it's like really frustrating, and your effort is all channeled in that direction. And then somebody pipes up from the side, little voice, hello, I can help. And you're like, what? Who? And then you're like, I'll make these. Sure, yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's magic. You're just like, wow.
Keeps me going.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It keeps me going. And really, the kids are, they just get it, right? Mm-hmm. And knowing that the kids understand the gravity of this problem and that they can do little things and be part of those agents of change. Yeah, that keeps me going every day.
I always find the whole thing of the kids, I think what it is just simply they're not anchored to some kind of legacy. Somebody who's 15 now, who's 20 now, their coming of age or their awareness is into this conversation, this awareness, global awareness, where more people are talking about environmental protection, the issue of oceans, whereas they're not held back by older generations who have this legacy of, oh, we always did this, we've always done this, Correct. It's fine, you know. And so a bit of optimism. How do you offer a ray of sunshine to a kid who's like, oh, it looks really bleak, it looks awful, 250 or whatever the number you gave, million sharks still. The number's too big. Like it's almost meaningless, But so, what kind of ray of sunshine can you give these young minds? There is room for optimism.
I guess the word I would use is empowerment.
Okay.
Educating young people that they have the ability and the power within them, that they are empowered to make change, is very, very important in a culture, in any society. Because if they're not happy with the way it's going, right, they can make change, just little things, and it will make a difference. And understanding, like Greta Thunberg, that just one person has a knock-on effect,
sure,
right, has a reaction down the line, and that they're not powerless, that they in fact can be empowered, and they can work together. Because as I said, together, they're stronger together, right? And so we have a saying that when the buying stops, the killing stops too. Mm-hmm. And in Mandarin, we say, 中文我们说, 没有买卖就没有杀害. When the buying stops, then the killing stops too, right? So if they understand that by just stopping the buying has a direct effect
Absolutely.
On the killing,
sure.
It just, it really sums up what we're trying to do here. We can do it together, whether it's other NGOs. And I don't rely on that. I rely on just basically the hearts and minds of people making little difference through organizations, like I said, Two Presents, or becoming a shark-free company, or having a shark-free wedding.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, you've come also from the more corporate side, and you mentioned the CSR model, or say framework within a company, an organization, right? So somebody from the outside, they can come in and they say, okay, can you fold this into your CSR activities or CSR program? Do you feel that at this point, companies are still very much hinged on a clear CSR, the benefit of clear CSR activities? Or do you feel that it was a bit of a fashion, that it kind of came and went?
I think it's actually a bit of both. I think it was a fashion, and I think people are still working on it. It can be a red herring where they just want to flag it up and get credit for it, right? Mm-hmm. But I do, I definitely think it's super important right now. A lot of companies are really into these SDGs.
What's that?
Sustainable Development Goal.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
They want to have SDGs, and a lot of them are government approved. Mm-hmm. And the United Nations has 17.
Right.
SDGs. Mm-hmm. Okay. And one of them, number 14, is life below water.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what we're trying to help companies who want to tick that number 14 or get an SDG, for their corporate social responsibility policy. We can help them to meet that need. And, green is still something that's very new for a lot of companies. The basic 4 food groups of charities are children, giving money being given to children, elderly, poverty, and disabled or ill. Mm-hmm. And so we don't fall within that.
Yeah.
Even our own Operation Santa Claus, when you apply to receive money from it, it says very clearly at the bottom of the application, no religious or animal rights organizations may apply.
Right.
So we need to change that. And, they may have changed that within the last couple of years since I saw that, but I don't think so.
Right.
But we need to change that mindset, because the way I see it is, how you're on a plane and they say, well, if the oxygen mask drops down, put it on you first and then cover your child.
Yeah.
I believe the green factor, the oceans, the climate change, the sharks, I believe these factors are the umbrella, which are over the children, the poverty,
sure.
the elderly. Because if we don't have clean water, if we don't have clean air, if we don't have a healthy environment, right? If we're eating sharks with heavy metal in them, like heavy metals like arsenic, mercury, lead, right? And that's just not in sharks, by the way. Pretty much all fish has that. We need to stop eating. So, that big picture is the atmosphere, is the environment, the green issue, which protects all those at the bottom.
I agree 100%.
So corporates, so back to your question on, are they just,
window dressing?
Yes, window dressing, exactly. It's just window dressing, are they just talking the talk? I think corporates want to do, like the big investment banks that want to do something to not only be seen as giving back, but actually doing something for the bigger picture, right? The climate, and do something green. But it's hard for them. It's a bit of a Leviathan. It's like you're in a big, huge Carnival Cruises boat and you want to turn left. You have to start now, right? Yeah. It takes, versus if you're in a speedboat, you automatically can turn. We can turn, So I know that it's difficult for them, but if they take a chance on sharks, they're not just doing sharks. They're not just saving sharks. They're saving the oceans.
It's the whole oceans, absolutely.
Because the problem is overfishing, right? Sharks are the bycatch and they're being overfished. And so we can't just say, well, these only 10, really only 10 species are protected under the United Nations CITES law, right? There are 2 new that have been added.
Right.
But there are basic 10 sharks, right? Great whites, basking, whale shark, there are others. But we need to be saving all the sharks.
Sure. Is it, it's 300 species, right?
Over 450.
Okay, 450.
I hear different numbers all the time. Yeah. So over 400, over 500, I like to go in the middle. Right. So, again, we don't know, because every day, if you're a marine biologist and you're out swimming, you might find a new species. So, it takes time. But the point is that there's a lot of species, over 450, and only 10. That's why we as citizens of the earth have to take action and do it ourselves. We can no longer wait.
Well, so waiting for the government to be proactive, it doesn't happen. They're usually the one to come last to the party, and then they give the stamp of approval, and then they say, okay, now it's
Safe,
done.
Yeah.
Now it's
Or they
policy.
rely on NGOs to do their job.
Okay.
And that's really typical, especially in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Where, in a place like Canada or the U.S., you have the governments, they allocate money
Right.
to give to endowments, to give to charities and foundations. But here, the money is only goes to those four groups.
Right.
So the green, the environment, the water, all these other kind of environmentally related initiatives, it includes animals, they really are on their own when it comes to fundraising.
I am eating this up. So far on the podcast, I've had other conservationists as well. I love how each person's voice is unique and the energy is different. I mentioned Po Chung before in the conversation, right? So I've been working with Po a long time, and part of what we say is that who you are informs the service you give, right? So who you are as a human being, Andrea, is really, like, you're in a way the brand of Hong Kong Shark Foundation. And I love that identity is very articulate, intellectually forceful. You're not a wimp, but extremely caring. And I find that really inspiring. I would love for somebody to hear this who's not in Hong Kong to say, I'm going to get involved, even though I'm in New York or I'm in South Africa or whatever, and create bridges because...
Absolutely. Those bridges. Well, first, your words are very kind. And I know I'm preaching to the choir a little bit with you because you were very instrumental. You did your sharks rescue before, and I know you did some great activism by wearing. We have shark suits.
Sure,
Anybody ever wants to wear a shark suit and walk around, and raise awareness? But our motto, our mission is 5 words: to raise awareness about shark conservation and educate people about not eating shark fin soup and other shark products.
Right.
So, as I said, if we can show people it's easy to be empowered, people, your listeners, they may think, oh, it's okay, to eat a little bit of shark or whatever. But I think we all have to do our part, whether it's reusing and reducing or whether, we're trying something to be more greener. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, usually it's a choice. You can go left or right.
Absolutely.
Why not go the right direction?
Correct. There's a great quote by the lady who actually was an advocate in the Florida Everglades.
Okay.
She's the reason why it pushed it. And she said, paraphrasing what she said was, you have to be a nuisance. You can't, you just, if you want to get something done, you just can't sit back and think it's going to happen. And maybe at least if I'm not involved in the Shark Foundation and it disappears, right? At least I'll know I did a little bit, right? I can leave this planet knowing I tried to give back.
A fantastic nuisance.
Yeah.
Let's end on that note.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Very kind. Yeah.
I love it. Thanks.
You. Great. Thanks very much.
So good.
Really appreciate it.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting